Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Taking the Pulse on Today's Energies. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Today, we are going to be talking about where are we in the year 2022, March. Wow. Life has really been changing, transforming. There's a lot of things going on social media, a lot going on inside our hearts, a lot of compassion, empathy, anger, unrooted secrets, stories, and experiences that seem to be coming to the surface. What are we really looking at today? How are we engaging with others? Are we noticing things are changing and shifting? Are we in true awareness? Today, we're going to be talking about how can you navigate what is coming up in the world, coming up inside of you, or coming up in your reality, or showing up in your experiences. When you see it, you know it, you feel it, see it for what it truly is, identity or ego, and then how can you transform your life going forward? Can you be the light worker, transform the energy? Can you be the alchemist and say, this too is something I can work with, bring it on? Because truly, it's not about being able to say, that stuff is out there, it doesn't matter to me. It's not my business. I'm going to turn around, walk the other way. I'm going to bury my head in the sand, or they're speaking another language. Perhaps even if we look at those that are passing too early, and they want to share their secrets and their stories. They want to feel connected and loved. And you can't even get through someone's shielded armor to actually say, I unconditionally love you, I've always been there for you, and I will be there for you. How can we do these processes? We don't even know who we are in the first place. So today we will uncover that. And my co-host today is Patricia-Love. She's a motivational and women's confidence coach. She also has a best-selling book called Seen and Unheard. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jeanette. It's just a joy to be here. It's a great opportunity to share the light, you might say, of what's within us and what we can exert and change, potentially.
I'm so glad to have you because you've had so many experiences that you shared in your book Unheard, and I've been sharing so much for the last 11 years on this radio show about my experiences also. And since we have a few decades behind us under our belt, we can see how the world has been shifting and changing. Don't you think?
Absolutely. It shifts and changes every moment, and it's really acknowledging that, at least I found that with myself, is acknowledging that shift, those changes, and listening to me and listening to what's going on around me. And the more I started to do that, the more intuitive I've started to become, and a different type of energy started to exert for me, a more positive type of energy. Because right now I find there's a lot of negative energy out there, and what I can do and how I can be, and to help change that in some ways.
You know, if you look back at the decades in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was a lot of stuff going on then. The way people navigated post-World War II was pretty much, they kind of accepted it. So what if your husband was drunk and beat you up? So what if they were taking you down, and outside there was all scuffling? Or so what that you had this or didn't have that? And it really became that women would be in these little clutch groups. You know, at your kitchen table, everybody would come over. Well, I'll help you and bandage you up, and then to set you off to go back to get some more. Don't you think that those stories are embedded in all of us in our memories? And it's like scarred imprints, yes?
Absolutely. They're embedded in our cells, and they're just there. But I also believe that they can be transferred or changed, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be there. And actually, it's something it reminds me to, keep moving forward. But yes, they were, back in the day, they were just constantly, you're right, women would just bandage everybody up mentally, physically, whatever it might take.
Right.
And you went out and just did the same thing over and over and over. And, of course, what happens when you do that is you always get the same types of results. And I kind of believe that you can, the energy out there, if you learn how to handle that energy, and that energy is within us. It's just realizing it and then kind of flexing it and seeing, okay, what can I do with this, and how can I be better and be better and do better? So those stories I remember, because some of those stories is what I grew up with. Right. And they're in my cells, and those be quiet, Patricia. You should be seen and not heard. Take it, be strong, toughen up, stiff upper lip, keep going. And so, yes, that's exactly the way I was brought up until I started to understand that as an adult, I could actually make changes.
Though, if you really look at it, Patricia, we're in the year 2022. This is a different eon. I almost look at it as I think we're living on another world in the spaceship, because truly, we're the same people who were there decades ago, but now we're really 360 of it. But if you look at it, who's still on the earth are the people who have had those experiences and have it collected as baggage. In other words, you can sit any woman down in any assisted living, nursing home, elder care, end of life, disease situation, and say, tell me about your life, and boom, they're right back there. They've got the story. They could tell you what they were wearing. They could tell you if it was raining outside, And
absolutely, yeah,
and we tend to chastise these women and say, oh, that must be a memory thing. You see, they can only recall the old and they can't keep up on the new. When in essence, the old is who they are, because that's all they know. And I think if we look at that, if we look at that and we say, well, if grandma's a hard old whatever, well, maybe that's how she had to be, because she could have been dead by now. And boy, if she wasn't hard, she might have been, right?
Right, and she made this. That may be the way she survived. That is how I know that's how I survived, is compartmentalizing things and putting it away into my baggage or my suitcase, and it stayed with me and carried with me, and I just ignored it. But by talking about it, sometimes when you sit down those older people and they actually start talking about it, it's opening up their baggage and letting go and releasing a lot of things also. Because sometimes we hold those things into our body and our cells and it stays there. But once we start looking at the energy that's holding on to and releasing some of that, that's when I think that the change will begin, when we start to release. At least that's what happened with me, is that when I decided and made an effort to realize that I can release this, I'm going to choose to release it, and I'll still have it. It's still part of my DNA. It's my scars. It's my thing. But I can release it and maybe have some good energy to move towards different things, but still know that that's what brought me to where I am, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah. I can remember growing up. I mean, the words, that I even thought about it. It came to my thoughts in sleep this week. It said, that old phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I stood there and I said, well, that's BS, because sticks and stones, they're no big deal. It's the words that really have taken me down. Don't you think that we've looked at that as women over the decades? It's sort of like, who hasn't heard that your blood? I mean, I could go a list of stuff that I've been called, and every single woman, if she's truly honest, says, yeah, I have too. I was just afraid to say it because it might be true, right?
Well, it's so true, because words do hurt you. And I wish they would remove that quote from our sayings in so many ways, because I was beaten up and some bones were broken and the such, but those heal. They hurt, absolutely, but they healed. but the words that people simplistically say to you at times, like, you're just not good enough, or you're just, maybe you could do that, but you're not quite pretty enough. Just these little things stick in your mind, and they don't go away. And those are the things that actually hurt people, I think, so much more in the long run, because they hold on to those things. And if it's repeated to them constantly by, say, someone or some individual, it gets even more dug into that DNAs and that baggage. Whereas those sticks and stones or those bones that broke, they healed. You forget about them. It's almost like, I've never had a baby, but they say, when you've had a child, the pain, but then you have another one because it doesn't hurt so much. So, you just don't remember the pain. So yes, that's a quote that I thought about a lot before, because of what has happened to me in my past. And going into the future, I still see so many words that people continuously say to one another, women, men, and children especially, who don't have the cognizance or the understanding quite yet to understand it. They shouldn't listen to it, because they kids, what do? They learn what they live.
Mm-hmm. I even heard someone say the other day, they said, you deserve what you get. You say something like that, and if that's what you get, then that's what you get. And I went, whoa.
Yeah, that is a whoa.
Yeah, and I went, wow. And I just turned sideways and let the words pass. I said, there's no way in heck that this sucker is going to stick on me, Well, and it's crazy, and it's sort of like and what I don't want to do is, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, is that we don't want to build up our armor again, where we become these military things that we can't feel, we can't touch and notice and engage in energy in the world around us. We just don't want it to stick to us, correct?
Right. We don't want to. It's like if we shut it off, completely, then you're shutting yourself off. So you have to be kind of careful. So I do an interesting trick sometimes, depending on where I'm going to be going, or where, if I'm going into a place where there may be several people, where there's lots of different energy. I will actually, before I go out, visually and actually do the action of stepping into a bubble and zipping it up over my head and stating that I will not allow any negative, to penetrate my bubble. That will just, everything will just bounce off. And it's amazing when I visually do this, how it works. And because, we do just kind of take things in sometimes, and this is the things that we need to learn to understand, that it needs to bounce off. But it's hard for a lot of people to understand that until they really understand who they are and understand what their energy could do. I like to kind of say, because people don't always understand energy, and I know you do, obviously, but, it's like when walking into a room and you suddenly feel a negative something coming from one part of that room. And you kind of avoid that area, right? Because you just feel this negative energy. But people just need to address that and utilize that within their own selves, too, and see, like, is there a negative energy coming from someplace that I'm feeling, that I'm taking on? Right. Because most people will walk away to the other side. I know I would. If I feel a negativity on my left side, I'll head to the right, where there's some more positive. So it's always interesting that almost all people have been in that situation. We're like, oh, yeah, I remember there was a negative something and I didn't like it, so I went someplace else. Take that energy, realizing what that is, and use it in your own life and to move forward and expand. That's how I kind of look at it.
It's interesting you said that, because I have been so open my entire life. I've been here to transform energy. I mean, I know that is exactly my goal. And when I saw stuff like that, I would actually go towards it, because when I went towards it, then I knew I was being in space and time. And then I would just experience awareness, observation, identify, clear, heal, and then regenerate again. I had this process. That was my process. I just simply can remember
it. That's a great process. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember it even as a child, going through those steps. And, even just as up to last week, I had this psychic attack in sleep, and I went through the same process again, and it's, I think unless you're very well apt, you're very much in tune, and you're very much in, or maybe the space and time that I am, the best thing to do is exactly what you shared. And also, too, like I said, is that if you feel something coming at you and you're like, I don't feel equipped to engage with this at this time, physically turn your body to the side, the energy will walk past. You know, I distinctly remember working with this woman, and she allowed me to share the story. And I went to her house, and it was end of lifetime for her. And she says, I wanted a new heart. And we kind of went through the process 5 days there. And I asked her, I says, what is really bothering you? I says, why are you not allowing yourself to go to God, to leave, transition?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She says, but we just bought this brand new house, and we bought a brand new car, and we have all this debt, and my partner, blah, blah, blah. And she kept going on and on. I says, but Barbara, if you pass away in the next 5 minutes, are you going to take that, be able to fix that, have any affluence in that? Are you going to be able to have to do something with any of those things that you thought about? She says, no. I says, you're going to be dead. It's gone. You're in a different world. And she went,
right.
Oh. No, that was just instantly she went, oh. Huh. And I said, and she says, but how do I deal with it until then? And I said, so she had her hands folded, and I said, just take your index finger and pretend that a bug landed on your hand and just flick it off. So when someone's saying something that is just of that attune, flick it off. It bounces off of you. It doesn't come into your reality. Flick it off. And for the next 2 to 3 days, I would watch her randomly just using that finger. It was like on a twitch. It just kept going and going. And she had remembered that because she knew where she was going. She knew it was her time to pass through. Mm-hmm. But she wasn't willing to take all of that stuff with her. But it also allowed the other people to go through their stuff. I think that's seriously important to talk about for a minute, Patricia, because that's how I said, sometimes I go towards things, is because you have to allow the other person to go through their stuff, but you don't have to engage, attach, or be glued to their outcome. Yes?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I'm getting very excited about it in some ways. It's very interesting because we do need to sit in the feelings. And so I love that aspect of when you are very open, that maybe you do walk towards something because you're open and realize it's not going to affect you. But you're open enough to see the reality or see what's going on, and you can because you don't want to put yourself into a bubble either, because, it's hard to do that. So by learning and understand, like walking into something like, okay, I see this is not my thing or whatever, and I'm just going to let everything bounce off. I think that's really important, but you're right, not everybody is tuned enough into themselves to be able to do that quite yet in a lot of ways. But the first start of that is just what you said, is to sit in your feelings, to stop and feel your feelings. What are you feeling? What is it you're trying to not take with you? What is it, why are you feeling this way? Why are you feeling negative? Why are you even feeling positive? I think it's just as important to think about the positive energy as the negative energy, to see where it all develops and where you want to sit in it. Because when you sit in the feelings and acknowledge those feelings, whether they're negative or positive, that's when you can start moving forward in whichever way you want. But until you sit and acknowledge it, it's hard to do anything with them. So I really love what you just said.
And also be sure you know about protection, because a psychic attack is something that can come in. Or just as I shared about the woman with her finger, if you feel something coming at you, just flick it off. Think of it as a bug. Flick it off. Do you know what I mean? How simple is that? Do you know what I mean? And no one has to know what you're doing. You can just say you've got a twitch in your finger. You don't have to tell them.
That's interesting you say that. It's like, people that do tapping. And sometimes when we have things in our mind, we just, do a little tapping. It switches our brains and it flicks things off, and it changes your whole mode and your mood and that. So you're just kind of changing the wires in your brain, which we don't think about enough. We don't think about that. I can really do that by just doing a flick, that I can actually change what I'm thinking about and getting rid of that negative energy, it really can be as simple as that. It's just changing things, It's just that we get stuck. I think people get stuck, and they don't always know how to get out of it. And I sometimes want to say to them, well, you're stuck, it's okay. At least be in that stuck moment and think about why you're stuck. Feel you're stuck. And then it gets easier to move in and out of it and flow the energy more and more when you start to realize when you are in a certain place how you can flick it off.
Let's talk about identity and ego, because when you start to flick things off, when you start to shift your energy, when you start to let things pass you and don't engage with them, I can remember someone had called me and I hadn't talked to this man for probably 40 years, right? And it was someone that I knew when I was 16 years old. And all of a sudden he's calling me and I'm going, what's that about? But he says, I'm calling you because I'm having trouble. My wife is just screaming all the time. And she's putting him into some mental health places that are to get treatment because she believes he's the problem, and it's like back and forth. But at any rate, someone is trying to get change. Someone's trying to create change. And then what they find out happens is that the other person starts acting out. And we say, what do we do then? Or if we say, but if I keep reacting how I've always done it and now I'm doing something differently, it puts the other person on steroids and they're just attacking me because they don't know who I am. So how do you create an identity and an ego and shed both of those when all of those are wrapped up in the stories you've created for yourself? You've wrapped it up in your experiences of where you've been and what you've done, and you've also almost jumped their body because you're saying, oh, I love you because, oh, I have to be this because, oh, you're my relative because. And it's sort of like you're so over-enmeshed in someone else's energy, you can't even see things straight. I mean, but
you
now
can't see who you are. Yeah.
Right. And if we look at that, Patricia, that's exactly what has happened in the past, is that people have actually jumped each other's bodies to say, that old thing, but you're my puzzle piece, you're my whatever. And it's like, oh, go away, right?
Yeah. It's the ego is your identity is seems to be very fragile for a lot of people,
Yeah.
And it's something that, I think I know myself. I have to catch myself. I mentioned that to you earlier, that once in a while I have to, snap myself out of things like, oh, that's your ego talking, rather than the reality of anything. And what do you want? What are you trying to gain here, Patricia? And I have a quick story that, and I think people can relate to. It's like when people in relationships or the relationships are going well and say it ends into a divorce, and there's a lot of egos going back and forth, right? And I found that I had a cat in in relationships. I had a cat I'd brought into my relationship. And when we were going through a very bad, through a divorce, he decided to throw his ego out there and say, I'm keeping the cat. Well, and it was my cat, right? But instead of allowing my ego to get in the way, like, no, you can't do this, you can't, and make it all about myself, I basically said, no problem. And I found that by teaching myself and understanding and not needing to fuel certain things, that within about a month, I got my cat back, because he wasn't getting what he wanted with his ego. And I was not stepping forward and holding on to ego either. I had to let it go. And I think once we can start to realize that who's talking, me or the ego, and then you really can live a lot more peaceful life. So, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. So I really have to kind of look at my own self and catch myself. Like, is that ego talking, or is that Patricia just saying something,
Yeah. I think also, too, people say, but it's my life. And it's sort of like, no, it's a life that your human is having. Your soul is eternal. Give it up. And I think if you can separate both of those apart, wow, does it take off a monkey off of your back? It's sort of like saying, it's sort of like saying, I got this going on out there and it sucks, and I'm stupid, I made a poor choice and whatever. And it says, but I am am still a good, loving person. Yeah.
It's all about me, which became a cute saying, right, for a lot of people. It's all about me, But it's interesting when you can actually just, admit to yourself, okay, we're having a conversation, but I don't have to be right or I don't have to be wrong. I can just be. And when you can learn to do that and not have it like you won or I didn't win in a particular conversation, a lot of times I can just say thank you for your opinion or thank you for something. And the peace that you have knowing that you were still strong, you didn't give in. You just didn't let somebody, take over. And I find that it really changes the tune of the conversation and how you feel about yourself. Because you're strong enough to realize that, well, I didn't really need to win anything. What's the point? And that's how I've been really learning and teaching myself against ego and identifying who I am and realizing that my key thing, and I think most people's, is they want peace within. And how do you get peace? It's stopping the I and the you in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break for a moment, and we will be right back.
Today we discuss many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr-jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.
And I'm so glad to have you. Again, my guest today is Patricia-Love. She's the author of Unheard, and we're talking about how can we transform our lives from that which has been the mantra kind of in the past and kind of our unawakened selves. And now we're into a spot and saying, man, bring it on. I need to start shedding some stuff because when I transform, transfigure, and start to go into that veil, and my soul is eternal, I'm not taking any of this baggage with me. And we're going to become new souls. No longer are we going to be old souls carrying all of this yada, 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 and all of these scripts and scriptures of all the places our old souls have been before. Can we look at the new children now and say, wow, they are so free. Because they're new souls, they aren't dragging their old baggage. So how can we become and be more in the present moment? Patricia, it's so glad to have you talk today about, we're going to now share about how can we see ourselves in this present moment, awareness. So just as we shared before, we have hearts and struggles and stories and secrets and identity and ego. That's all the stuff. But now how can we say, sit in the moment, feel your feelings, and then open your eyes? Sometimes people say, but the old stuff is still there. And the answer is don't open your mouth. When you open your eyes, don't open your mouth. When you open your mouth, then the old stuff is there. But if you open your eyes and your heart and work from there first, do you think that might be an option?
I think that's a perfect way of putting it. Is just, you're right, opening your eyes and opening your heart and opening to who you are and intentionally living in the present by being grateful I'm grateful right now for talking with you. That to me, I'm just right in the moment. I don't know what's happening in the next minute. I don't care about that last minute, but just right this moment is peaceful and pleasant, and I'm present. And I intentionally am doing, it becomes natural when I say intentional. It becomes natural when you do it more and more and more. And if we can just practice that intentional, just be in that moment, you have to open your eyes and look around and be grateful for what you have right this second. Not what you're going to have in a second from now, but right this second.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens.
You know, so many times I would do this show and I would sit here and all of a sudden I would notice a shadow go through my vision like outside, and I would look and this big, huge owl would be sitting on my patio. And I go, oh, cool, wisdom has shown up, you know? Or
right.
I would go outside and I would watch, and he would turn his head all the way around his body to watch me go all the way around. And I would just say hi, and I'd take a picture, and I'd say, thank you for showing up. And I would turn around, go back in my house, and he'd still sit there, you know? So I think that the idea
if you hadn't been in that moment, though,
yeah,
if you hadn't been in that moment, you might not have noticed.
Right, but he also, too, did not feel that I was putting something on him or I had to command that he do this, that, or the other. It was just,
But there was no threat.
That's
there was no threat of anything. It was just a beautiful two beings, you might say, within each other's space.
Yeah. Do you think that sometimes that threat that we carry forward is what is an old memory? It's sort of like you feel like, you know, do you remember the old Peanuts cartoons, you know, with Charlie Brown, and the guy used to walk and he always had the dust around his feet?
Yes,
I feel like sometimes we're wanting to be able to say, I want change, but we forget to change our shoes.
Oh, absolutely. I think we live in that. You know, a lot of people just want to live in that dirt, you might say. They just want to live in that space. And some people, I believe, I was just thinking about this morning, that, you know, some people don't want to be any different. You know,
yes.
They say it, but they don't really mean it. Or do they really want it? I talked to several people, women and men, and there's no desire to be any better, any worse, or anything. And so, you know, I'm not going to force anybody to be or do anything that they don't want to be. So until somebody really says, yeah, all this dust around me, I think I'd like to clean it up. Until they're ready to say that or get it, you know, throw it in the dishwasher or the washing machine or something, nothing's really going to happen. And they just go through life with like the peanuts, you know, with, you know, dragging the dirt around along with you. And a lot of people can understand that as calling them as a victim in a lot of ways. They just, nothing is good enough. I'm gonna just sit here in my dirt, and, you know, I hope you feel sorry for me. So,
right, and I think though also too, if we can be kind, if we can be in God's light, if we could say, I'm engaging with this person because I am doing light work, then what I'm saying is I would look at that person and say, thank you so much for co-piloting this experience with me, because what you are doing is you are living your life exactly how you're supposed to. Maybe you were given a template from God or your soul or whatever that says, I'm going to go around and triggering people. That's my job. It's my job. I'm supposed to trigger them because I'm supposed to awaken them. Or it could say, I'm supposed to show them what broken looks like, or I'm supposed to show them how brokenness can cause a disease. In other words, if we truly say that everyone and everything is in their own uniqueness of their story scroll, can we allow everyone and everything to also exist and not go out trying to have to save, transform, and be, and hey, you know, come follow me kind of guru? I mean, if you look at Added Healthcare right now, why is everyone burnt out? Because what did they try to do? Save everybody. Because they believe they could. Right?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. That is, if we could just allow everybody to be what they want to be, and if they choose to change at some point, that's the time they're supposed to change. Or you're right, maybe they're there to trigger you to learn something. So it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And if maybe you are there to show and be a certain way, which may trigger them to change also. So we are here for purposes, all of us. And the purposes are going to be different for every single one of us, whether that's teaching somebody light, which is maybe somebody's supposed to be your trigger, and maybe they're going to learn something in the next life. But this life, they're here to trigger people next life, they're going to be the ones triggered. So,
Right.
if we can all just understand that we just need to be who we are and be the people we can. If you want to change anybody, change yourself, if that's what you choose to do, and then you can either carry on your own light, you can carry on your own ways of things, because that's maybe your purpose in this life until your next life. Because who knows, I find that in our past lives, because we have talked about that briefly, that there's always something they say we haven't finished something, and we come back and we finish things in our other lives. So we'll see how that goes. But, I know I have a lot of things that I want to keep doing, so I'll be coming back a lot. There's lots of things I want to do.
Yeah, I'm complete. I'm good. I'm good to go. And when I go to sleep at night, it's like, dear God, thank you so much for today. I'm ready. The gate is open. And then when I get up in the morning, I say, oh, holy crap, I'm still here. So,
you know what? Just being thankful that you opened your eyes is a beautiful thing. I think every morning that I open my eyes, so it's like, what am I going to? What's in store for me today? That's on my purpose type of thing. But yes, I completely agree. That we all just need to kind of be who we're supposed to be. And if you are awakened in certain areas, then awaken yourself and do what your purpose is supposed to be, whatever that might be.
Let's also, talk about the idea of releasing. When things come up, say, a lot of times people will say, but I can't be in the moment. My body's hurting. I can't be in gratitude. I don't have any money. I can't this, that, or the other. And I'd say, fantastic. So what you say is, my body is in pain. And then you use the word cancel. My body is in pain. Cancel. I have to carry this pain. Cancel. I am hurting. Cancel. And every single time you do this, you keep going through the list until your mind and your consciousness has stopped putting things there. Just keep going. If it takes, 2-3 hours, just keep going. If it takes 5 seconds, keep going. And every time you say cancel, it tells your mind that idea is no longer in your mind. And you continue to do this and eventually use that as your mantra. But then you have to take it on the flip side. So, in other words, we do all this clearing work and our spiritual path and knowingness and blah, blah, blah and everything. But then we have to say, what do we want now? And the now is, I am love. I am healed. I am present. And there isn't much more that you need to know. Because when, you think about healed, your body could still be having all those issues. But your soul is not hearing that you're broken and everything and I have all this pain I have to carry. It's hearing I am healed. But you can't put the good in until you cancel out the old. Do you think that sometimes we want to force it down and say, God, I'm going to go to church, like we go to church and we hand our soul over to the priest. Fix me, give it back to me, and let me know how to do it. Go to the doctor, same thing. Fix me, and then you come home and you're all mad because you're still not better. We do the same thing with mental health. Fix me, tell me how to think, and it'll change it. When in essence, it's really inner work, right?
It completely is. I mean, I think there's too much forced things, you might say, things forcing themselves. Like I got to force myself out of this pain, or I got to, so they're causing themselves more hardships or more pain by forcing issues and forcing things. And where you're right, it needs to be from within. And just like the flicking of the fingers, when you talked about removing something, it's the cancel is because a lot of everything we do and be is within us. We have that energy, the mindset, and everything. We have it all right here. It's just a matter of realizing that I have everything I need within me to do and be whatever and feel and release the pain or release the negativity or release if I just am. If I just am. And I think that's when you talked about earlier about releasing, when we can be in the I am or just be in the moment, that's when everything is natural. It's just in the moment. And so you can release easier because I lack for nothing. I am abundant right now. I have food. So we do I think we force things almost too much, and then it's almost like pushing against a wall that's not moving, and you just keep pushing, and it's just nothing is happening.
Yeah, and let's talk about in closing about when we have new experiences and we wish to create something new, and we will say, "Oh, but it looked just like it did yesterday." The answer is, wait a second, your hair was crooked on the other side yesterday, so it's not the same. Oh, wait a minute, you had the other shoes on yesterday, it's not the same. So if we can realize that life is ever-changing and nothing is ever the same, then we can let go of that comment, oh, this is the same thing, or, oh, it's this again. There is no such thing. It can't be again because it's already been passed, right?
Yeah, change is happening every second. Every second there's change. And people think that, oh, it's just I'm doing the same thing over and over again. But everything, if you really look at it, just like what you said, nothing remains the same. And it's interesting that when you bring up, even change is because change itself is a constant, right? That's one thing in the world that's constant. Right. The change of the atmosphere, the change of the rain, the way you look, the way even though you may think you look the same from yesterday to today, you don't, because you're maturing. Everything changes, right? So I've learned to really to help that along is embracing the change as a friend and seeing it. Wow, look at today. It's not the same. My curtain's different. The weather's different. Life is different. I'm different.
Right.
And when you embrace that, it becomes exciting rather than forcing it again, that the experience is like, oh, it's just the same old thing all the time. When in reality, if you can say it's not, because it is, that's not true. Nothing is.
Well, you know what, Patricia? And as I've always said on this radio show for over a decade now, pray for telepathy, please, because we got to get rid of these words. Because all of these words have old identities, dead energy, old paradigms, and blah, blah, blah. We don't want them anymore. Let's get telepathy in, right?
Yeah, and, really one thing, if I try to get people, and even myself, because I have to put myself in there. I'm human at this point, and I watch my words. I watch, I sometimes things come out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, now let me rechange that. Let me change that word. That's not a word that I want to use. And the more we can really be in tune with what we say, what we think, and what we do, the better you feel and become, and the less pain and fear that you have in life. If you just be more in tune and understand that if you do make a little mistake on something, like, oh, catch yourself and say, let me change that. Let's see, change again. Let me change that and move forward. But it's really, as people are listening to this conversation with us, I think one thing that they could get them to take away is just realize that everything is different, and everything can be different if you allow yourself to feel it and be it, and be excited about change. Be excited about it because it's happening to us every second.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is just so freeing. Even what I did is a little trick is I got these little paper butterflies from Amazon, and I think there was a package of like 14 of them in there for like $5. And I just took them out, and you bend the wings a little because they're only paper. And I put one on my computer, and it reminds you, just let things be. And it was just something different. It was something pretty. So I think sometimes we say, when you take something out, replace it with something else. What is your favorite thing? Oh, I love pink blankets. Oh, I love to have flowers outside. Oh, I love to have my door open. Or maybe I really don't want to wear shoes. So you move your shoes out of the living room and they don't come there anymore. So I think the idea is create something that's pleasing to remind you every day that of the pleasing moments versus saying it's the same old stuff. So I know for myself.
It's just make something that makes you smile. Something that makes you smile every day.
Yeah, and like when I put those butterflies there, it was just like, oh, this is just cool. And, I bought a bunch of seeds the other day, and I don't even know what kind they were. I kind of dumped them in a bowl, put them together, and I said, I'm not going to anticipate the outcome. of what's going to grow, like the picture on the package. I'm just going to wait and see what grows, and then I can relish in the magic. Whoa,
That's
how
right.
freeing is that?
That is freeing. Is the lack. If you don't have the expectations and just be in the moment and see what happens, let it go and flow the way it's going to flow. Because this is one of the things that people get stuck in, is that they think about what could be, and then they get disappointed. When in reality, if you just think about what is, then life just opens up with like a beautiful butterfly or beautiful flowers or a cat that's smiling at you, like my cat's smiling at me right now. So,
yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think, Patricia, what we shared today is how to see our experiences where they are, know that they're in the past, see where we are today, and how can we create going forward. So I really think taking the pulse on today's energies today is about, yes, there's a lot going on out there, but we're also can be able to see there will be another day tomorrow, right?
Absolutely, and enjoy every moment and be grateful for the moment and look around you and see the beauty that really is out there, because all positive energy also reflects in the world, too, of energy. Because we all are energy, it also pushes out positive energy to other people. And this is key for kindness and caring.
Absolutely. Patricia, can you share with the listeners how to find out more information about your work?
Absolutely. If you want to know more about my coaching and such, you can go to patricia-love.com. And also, I just launched an app called Confident You. It's an affordable coaching app. It's free to download. Go to the Apple Store or Google Play and download Confident You, just the U, the letter.
Very good. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you with us today to co-host. It's so enjoyable to be able to bounce our words off each other and to be able to say it's going to be okay. So today we really did our light worker work. Yes.
Yes, it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to having you on again in the future. It was such an enjoyable day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeanette.
If you'd like to find out more information about Patricia Love and her work, click on the link on the bottom of today's show page. Go directly to her website for more information. And it truly is about being able to say, how can I navigate my days today? I'm ready for something new. And for my new service, Healing Through Storytelling and Sharing, please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to my website for a session, coupon, free newsletter, free articles, and a free gentle healing book. And it truly is about being, say, I see this today. I know there are some changes coming up, and I truly want to be able to engage with others, open myself up to my heart and my soul, and let go of so much of the stuff that I've been carrying for these eons. Please click on the links, check out our work, and let us know how you're doing. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all other social venues. And also this radio show is on anywhere you find music radio. Please Google Wellness Radio with Dr. J. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr-jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.